Hi, I'm Anne-Marie Mediwake, and I'm here with Lindsey Deluce. Welcome to CTV Your Morning, the podcast.
So this week, we're taking a look at what we can expect to see this year from artificial intelligence.
And beam me up. We also share our conversation with Humberly González, one of the stars of the newest addition to the Star Trek universe. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget, you can always watch us live, CTV Your Morning, weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern and from 7 to 10 a.m. Atlantic on CTV CTV News Channel, and always on your CTV News app.
We're starting the podcast this week with a question. Here's the question. When was the last time you let a phone call go to voicemail on purpose?
Okay, well, actually, my voicemail is disconnected. But I didn't realize there's a lot of people who do not like to answer the phone. And if the idea of picking up a phone fills you with dread, you are not alone. The phenomena actually has a name. It's called telephobia or phone anxiety.
That's right. And there's this new college course in the UK. It's trying to help people get over that fear. We had a chance to speak with Liz Baxter, a career advisor at Nottingham College, who helped design this course. So telephobia is a real thing. How did you figure that out?
As a careers advisor, we work with students to get them ready for work or university, a range of options. And when we were supporting them, it became increasingly obvious that students really aren't comfortable selling and promoting themselves when it comes to job interviews, when it comes to progressing towards university, via telephone calls. They're happy using a phone for any other form of communication except actually making and receiving audio calls. It's just not been part of their experience or their skill set so far.
I was going to ask you if it was a generational thing, but this was me when I was younger. I was terrified to pick up the phone to order a pizza. Like, my parents used to force me to do it, and I'd be in tears. And I have to say, Liz, at the time, couldn't explain it. In fact, I still don't understand what that was. I was probably 12 or 13 at the time. What have you uncovered about the root of this fear?
I think actually it's about not having had the opportunity to demonstrate those skills. Nowadays, if you call your bank, you will automatically go through to an AI assistant. If you make a phone call to an organisation, it's some automated AI system that answers. So it's kind of not young people's fault, really. They've just simply not had the opportunity to develop those skills. So what we do is we use scripts and we allow students to practice scenarios where they have to manage the ebb and flow of a two-way conversation, making a phone call, and that kind of helps little bite-sized practices to increase their confidence and their skills in this area.
So I understand in the course you mentioned 5 steps to phone confidence. Can you walk us through what those are?
So practice is the first one. Getting yourself into a safe zone. So, you're not going to be interrupted. There's no kind of barking dog in the background. Do your research. Do your research about where you are going to, who you're going to be speaking to, and what the ebb and the flow of the conversation is likely to look like. Also, cheat codes. The absolute best thing about being on the telephone is you can write notes. You can write yourself prompts to kind of help yourself as you go along. And remember that the person on the other end of the phone may actually be as nervous as you are. So not speaking into a void. There is the opportunity for you to connect with someone. Even though you can't see them, they're still there. If you smile, you can hear that in your voice, and it comes over, and it kind of equates to a much more confident and warmer telephone call.
And what's the feedback been like from students?
Actually, it's been really, really positive. This is an overwhelming area of need for us, and we want students to be the best, most confident of themselves, versions of themselves going forward. So, yeah, it's definitely a really positive impact here at Nottingham College.
Yeah, that's
You were one of these people who were scared to use the phone.
Yeah, I mentioned that to her as well. When I was probably like 10, 11, 12 years old, it was a real fear for me. Like, to the point where and it sort of confounded my parents. Like, why won't she order pizza? So they forced me. And when I say which was I think the right move to get me to confront it.
Yeah.
But at the time, it felt like my whole body was panicked.
And what were you afraid of?
Not sure. I don't know. I can't explain it. I mean, even when I think back now, like I can't explain why I was so nervous to pick up the phone. But what I did, like at a practice, they would make me do all of the food orders. So we usually order food on a Sunday night. So, but I would be in tears.
Oh.
It was a real thing.
Yeah.
And so I understand it. So when we were talking about this segment before we did it, and there were multiple people in our, of our colleagues who were like, yeah, I kind of had it too, and I don't really know why. And it's interesting that and I can see why now this generation has it. Maybe it's more talked about because. I look at my kids. I mean, they don't really talk on the phone with anybody.
No. Well, they snap. So they'll do like a short, either an image of themselves or like a short conversation, or they'll FaceTime. Mm-hmm. But like phone etiquette and understanding, like I don't know.
I know.
When I was talking to my niece, who was also very afraid of phone calls, she said it's because you can't see people, and so you can't read how they're receiving your information, and the anxiety of that really lives in your head. I did not have this problem.
No,
it's not a surprise.
Well, I know, and it's funny. I'm glad my parents did that with me because that worked, and now I just talk for a living and talk to a lot of people on the phone. I really enjoy doing it. We have a home phone right now.
Yeah.
Like
a landline?
Yeah, we have a landline at home, and it's funny with the kids because we are trying to teach them how to have proper phone etiquette.
Yes.
But they'll pick up the phone when it rings.
Yeah.
And they won't say anything.
Oh, they'll just sit there.
Yeah. So they'll pick up, if I call home and somebody will pick up the phone and I know it's one of the children because
breathe.
Nothing happens. Like you have to say hello and you pick up the phone.
You need some more practice.
I know.
Well, but maybe it's not just about the phone calls. Maybe we're all just a little bit exhausted. We've all heard the slogans, rise and grind, or hustle harder, you can sleep when you're dead. These are all part of hustle culture.
Yeah, that pressure to always be on could be taking a serious toll on our health and on our happiness. So how do we find a better balance? Career expert Angela Champ has some thoughts on that.
Can you start off by giving some examples of what hustle culture will look like in the workplace?
Sure. Hustle culture is a mindset that prioritizes work above everything else, including mental and physical health. And what it looks like is employees are always on. They're working long hours, including evenings and weekends. They have unrealistic timelines and deadlines for the work. And the employees are sacrificing family time, time with their hobbies, and even sleep in order to get the work done.
I feel like expectations have changed, and people have probably seen this on their social media as well. How much of hustle culture and that mindset is generational? So, for example, do you think a Gen Z employee would approach hustle culture differently than a Gen X or a millennial?
You do see it across all generations. However, what I've noticed in the workplace is that Gen Z tends to have a lot more boundaries. They'll say, no, thank you. I don't want to work 55 hours a day or a week. I don't want to work long hours into the evening. I have plans for the weekend, or I'm going to take a day off to go skiing. They tend to have better boundaries. Unless you're the employer and you're thinking, that's not better boundaries, but they tend to put that in place more than an older generation might.
And just really quickly, in terms of the amount of work that you're doing within, let's say you are still working an 8-hour day, does that look different generationally, like multitasking versus single task?
Definitely. So it's different whether you're in the office or in remote as well, what the expectations are. But in the office, you might be working, but you might not be sitting at your desk for 8 hours a day. You might go grab a cup of coffee, you might go for a cigarette break. And so there are breaks built in during the day, whereas it is a little bit different depending on whether you're working remote or in the office.
Here's a question for you. How do you tell the difference between being busy at work and then having too much on your plate?
Yes, so sometimes you're at a very busy period in your workplace. Let's say you're an accountant and it's year-end.
Tax season.
That's right.
Yeah.
Or you're working on a project that has a finite start and a finite end. If you know that there's going to be an end to it because year-end will eventually close or the project's going to come to an end, that's just being busy for a period. But look around you. If you're always busy, if it's always overwork and there's never a break, that's how you know you're in a hustle culture environment.
How does hustle culture then impact people who work remotely? Is it different?
I think it is different. So if we're working in person and I haven't seen you for a while, I might say, has anybody seen Anne-Marie? And they'll say, yeah, she's in the kitchen, might go and find you there. But when you're working remotely, there's usually a light. Green means you're at your computer, red means you're in a meeting, yellow means you've been away from your computer. And managers will look and say, hey, you know what? Why is Angela on yellow so long? Like, what is she doing? Is she not working? And so it creates some suspicion about whether you're actually working and being productive.
And then with that suspicion will come questions, and then an employee will feel questions, and it can have sort of this negative impact on your work relationship. If you find yourself in an environment where you're expected to overwork. What do you say to draw boundaries around that?
Have an honest conversation with your boss, lay out all of your priorities and your tasks, and talk to them about what is really important to that boss or to the organization, and focus on those. Can you delegate anything? Can you drop anything? Sometimes people do work because you've always done it. You've always sent that report on the Monday morning, but maybe it's not needed.
Chinese-made AI tool DeepSeek is shaking up Silicon Valley and really the United States stock market, with U.S. President Donald Trump saying it should motivate American companies.
The release of DeepSeek AI from a Chinese company should be a wake-up call for our industries that we need to be laser-focused on competing to win, because we have the greatest scientists in the world.
DeepSeek says it has developed AI models for a fraction of what U.S. models cost. It shared that news last week, and now it has dethroned ChatGPT as the #1 free app in Apple's App Store. Stock markets have reached a massive sell-off of tech stocks, with NVIDIA stocks plummeting in the single greatest one-day value wipeout of any company in history, which is why we have brought in John Ehrlichman this morning, financial commentator, a little bit more on the story. So, John, this came out last week. There was a lot of skepticism in the AI world saying, is this a dupe or a counterfeit? Is this something that they've done legally or illegally, or is this a copy of American made? And once it hit the consumer market, now we have this story.
Yeah, that's right. This is a Chinese startup that, like a lot of startups around the world, is working on these AI models. Why not? It's like one of the coolest areas to work on technology anywhere in the world right now. And this was started by, interestingly, his background was like he was a hedge fund manager, and he was interested in testing the limits of AI, so he started building a team. And you're right, Anne-Marie, that based on what we seem to be told, they were able to build something very successful as a AI chatbot at a fraction of the cost that we thought it would take to get these powerful applications going. So the reason the stock market had a freak out yesterday, to say the least, is because all the assumptions were based on the fact that big technology companies were going to have to spend hundreds of billions of dollars to build out the right infrastructure and data centers to meet the needs of what these chatbots would ultimately mean. So everyone's having a bit of a pause this morning to reflect on what this actually means.
Well, because there's a lot of things at stake here. We know that Donald Trump's, sort of main banner is America First. And $470 billion for the AI industry in America, when China is saying, we can do the same thing for a lot less. That doesn't fit his model. Right.
And, it's interesting. Trump came into office and wanted the U.S. to be the AI leader of the world, and they probably still can be. I mean, quite frankly, you've got the Silicon Valley companies, all that money they're spending, I guess in theory, some of it might feel like wasted money, but it's probably going to give them some kind of advantage. I think the bigger story is that AI does not rest in one country or another, right? This is technology that's going to be making its way around the world. And I think one of the things that the security experts were always so worried about was, as soon as we are pitting AI from one company versus another, because that's exactly what's happening in the U.S. too, how far is the AI going to go to serve its master? And if your master is a technology company, that's one thing. If it's a government around the world, what are the nefarious things behind the AI story? I think the tension is that there's already a relationship between the U.S. and China that is uncertain. And then when you take the most powerful technology in the world and you put it in the middle of the conversation, it also creates these geopolitical questions.
Sure. Let's talk about NVIDIA, because that's really what grabbed everybody's attention, I would say. Shares dropped nearly 17% on Monday, and by the end of the day, the company had lost, I mean, this number, you can't even comprehend, $589 billion in one day in market capitalization. We said this already, this is the largest loss in U.S. history for a single company. Why did it take such a hit? It's about the chips.
Yes. So to make this magic, these amazing AI tools, you need, we thought, the most powerful chips in the world, which actually NVIDIA basically invented. And this DeepSeek app also used NVIDIA chips, just as far as we know, not the most powerful ones on the market. So every day NVIDIA is making more powerful chips. they're very expensive.
Yeah.
And they have basically all of the market share and not enough supply. So when that's your market, your stock goes up and up and up again. And now there's this question, well, hold on a second, do people actually have to pay as much for these chips? Right. But there's a flip side, which is that there's actually a lot of companies that couldn't get their hands on this technology because it was already promised to other technology companies or the highest bidders. This actually might allow for this AI technology to make its way into more parts of the tech ecosystem. I mean, we'll see.
So at the end of the day, it comes down to was the AI industry fleecing the U.S. government? Were they increasing the valuation of what their research, what their product was worth? When you look at a company and a country who can do it for so much less. Is this a case, a little bit of emperor's new clothes? We're like, we're going to be the leaders in the world. It's going to cost us $500 billion to do it. And China says, no, it didn't cost us that much.
Well, I've covered Silicon Valley for a long time. Yeah. There was always hype, and they are good at selling their story. I think the jury's out, because we haven't really seen this new app put to the test when all of the world wants to use it constantly. And I think that's the belief, is that, you start with a chatbot, but then this AI technology takes all different forms, right? Now people are making images like that with this stuff. So does that compute power allow you to replicate whatever's been done so far with this app? So I think we'll have to see with time. But Silicon Valley is good at selling quite a story to the markets, that's for sure.
It is fascinating to look at, especially, it's kind of like the space race, but now we're talking about AI.
AI, yeah.
Well, from chatbots and facial recognition to video and image generation, 2024 was a year of rapid AI development. And if the Consumer Electronics Show is any indication, this year ahead could be just as innovative. We've got futurist Sinead Boval joining me this morning with a look at how AI is going to advance even further in the year ahead. Great to have you in studio.
Thanks for having me.
So you posted yesterday a clip that I just was so compelled by. You talked about how leadership in AI is critical. There's obviously been a big change in leadership south of the border. We are facing an upcoming election here in Canada. So what do we need to be watching when it comes to AI? What do we need to be thinking about?
Thanks for raising this point. I think leadership in the AI age may be one of the most critical times of leadership in our modern history. The decisions that are made over the next 4 years of how to build these technologies, how to deploy them safely, will have implications for decades and centuries to come. There was obviously a big change of leadership in the US. Canada is going to undergo their own changes. Leaders need to make sure they have a clear strategy. How are we keeping citizens safe? We know there's economic disruptions coming to the workforce. Lots to think about. Leadership, the role it's going to play, I cannot overstate.
Yeah, so you've said AI is going to get even more human-like, specifically in the forms of AI agents. I hadn't heard this term before, so what is this and what do we know about it?
So AI, it's going to feel or seem a little bit more human-like because it's getting more vision and voice capabilities. So you'll start sharing your screen with AI, talking to it a lot more than you just text to it. So you'll integrate it into your life a little bit more naturally. AI agents, you're going to hear all about this year. These are AI systems that can act more autonomously to perform full tasks on their own. So not just generate a picture or an email, from start to finish, do this research project, build out the PowerPoint deck, and maybe build the website as well for my new business. So it's going to be exciting in some ways, but we also need a little bit of caution. What are the boundaries we want to place on these more autonomous systems?
Yeah, boundaries, I think, becomes key when you start using that. We've already seen companies start to integrate AI into their devices. Google's AI glasses, for example. So at CES, we saw even more examples of this. What are some of the other AI-focused gadgets that you think are going to come out this next year?
Yeah, there'll be a big competition in AI-first eyewear, so Meta, Google, but then we'll also see, I was at CES as well, it was AI in everything. So there was the Leafy Pod, which is a AI-powered plant pod, where you just tell the AI what it is that you're growing, and the AI takes care of the watering and all of the plant needs. But there were smart mirrors, AI-powered televisions, AI accompanied in everything. Whether these will work as planned is yet to be determined, but we are really moving into the AI-first age.
Forbes magazine had an article this week suggesting that the rapid growth that we saw last year and the development we saw last year might not be sustainable, that there might be this bubble that could burst. What's your take on that?
Most emerging technologies, general purpose technologies, and these kind of fast cycle technologies do ebb and flow, and they do go through periods of being kind of a bubble.
but I don't think AI is going to just go away. This is a general purpose technology. So yes, there are some hype cycles with it, but it is going to be as big and as pervasive as a technology like electricity. So you might hear ebbs and flows in news cycles, but this technology is here to stay.
We're glad that you've joined us today for CTV Your Morning, the podcast. You can join us live every weekday morning on CTV, on CTV News Channel, or always on your CTV News app.
We are now just over a month into the new year, and let's be honest, I mean, some of those big resolutions might already be, I don't know, next year's resolutions. Is that fair?
Probably, yes. But before you throw in the towel, ultra marathoner Maddie Gill says that setbacks are not the end of the road. They are just part of the journey.
Maddie, you say distraction plays a huge role in derailing us from our goals. And you have this mindset that you talk about where it's catch it, check it, change it. Can you walk us through what that looks like and start first with catch it?
Absolutely. So where this actually came from was the fact of the matter that when we surveyed over 10,000 people, they said on average, 74% of them had one admitted distraction per day for 30 consecutive days. So if you think of that, and I know there's many of us that are watching right now that can say, I get distracted every minute or every hour. What ends up happening is we derail ourselves from what our goals are. So when we came up with the phrase, and I have to thank my mom for this, because I was like, Mom, we got to come up with something catchy, right? Catch it, check it, change it. So the moment that a distraction comes in, really recognizing the fact of the matter, stopping in the moment and being like, I need to catch this. This is a distraction, right? So it can be going to your, shiny email inbox. It can be going to social media, whatever that might be. So catching it and then checking it. Is this derailing me from my goal? Or is this keeping me on track towards my goal? Very important piece. And then change it. If it is something derailing you, you have all of the power within you to change that. So take a different path. And yeah, that's why I wrote the book, is because I'm excited to share that path.
I love your take on failure. You say failure is okay. You actually have an acronym for it. First attempt in living.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Fail. So if we think of it, first attempt in living. If you look at the word failure, oftentimes a majority of us are like, we got to stop, right? Like, we're not meant to achieve this goal. We're not meant to continue forward. But if we look at first attempt in living, and this actually came from a client who is a principal, and she noticed that kids were starting to have this terrifying feeling of failure. And she's like, we've got to change this. So her and I talked about this acronym, and all of a sudden the kids were like, first attempt at living. That's all I want to do, is I want to live. And how can we not do that for ourselves as well, no matter what age we are? So when we look at fail, I mean, that should be a regular dinner table conversation that you can have. Like, how did you fail today? Okay, we always talk about the successes. We can talk about the other ways as well.
I often say to my kids, listen, it's your first time being a 10-year-old. It's my first time being a mom of a 10-year-old. We're figuring it out together. We're gonna make mistakes.
Yes, yeah, we're human. And it feels so good to be able to say that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. So let's talk about what's next, though. You fail. Okay, no big deal. How do we get back on track?
Okay, so this actually, and it reverts really great to the fact that we had the trail running photo. The 17-mile dip is what I call it, right? We all get into the start of that goal. We're excited. It feels really good, really fresh. And all of a sudden it's like, I don't think this is fun anymore. Majority of us have been there. And so in order to get back on track, what I very much so look at is the mind frame of forward is a pace. So don't put all of that pressure on yourself to have this extreme result so quickly, right? Take a couple steps back, recognize that we just have to set these milestones, and we have to realize that it's going to take time. Be kind to yourself in the process. We want to avoid friction, and we want to avoid burnout. So recognizing that those dips are going to happen, have people in your life that are going to hold you accountable. It can be a mentor, it can be a great friend, it can be a family member. Kelsey, I'm coming to you, right? So recognize that people always want to see you succeed. Lean into those people that want to see you succeed. They will help you in those moments.
Switching gears for a second, online shopping has been the go-to for a lot of people, especially since the pandemic. I know that's true for me. But some retailers are trying to breathe new life into the brick and mortar locations.
Now, shopping isn't just about buying a lot of stuff anymore. It's about the experience, right? This is all part of the rise of third spaces. So these are places where we're just as happy to hang out as we are to shop.
Okay, for people who are new to this term, explain a little more. What is a third space, and how are retailers using them to try and not only create a sense of community, but reap back some of the financial losses?
Yeah, great question. So a lot of viewers will understand the concept that Starbucks really brought to the market, which was this idea of the third space, being that we have home, we have work, and then when we're in neither of those places, we have this third space, sort of a communal gathering space where we can get together with friends or with members of the community. And this is really carried over into retail. And Anne-Marie, it's really carried over because retailers certainly face a lot of challenges. You mentioned it in the introduction that really this is the store these days. You know, we hold the store in the palm of our hands, and every form of media that we come in contact with today is really a direct path to purchase. It's a direct path to retail. And so it's really raised the question, well, if that's the case, then what's the purpose of a physical store? And retailers are coming over to this idea that physical stores are a really powerful form of media that allows them to reach audiences of consumers and communities of interest and bring those consumers into their spaces for really powerful physical immersive experiences. And it also allows them to sidestep a lot of the problems that they're having in legacy and digital media, which is becoming increasingly expensive and also decreasingly effective in reaching consumers today.
I think this concept is fascinating. Typically, third spaces had been, like, as you pointed out, a coffee shop or a restaurant. And I think it's fascinating that retailers are trying to create this in their stores. More than half of Canadians do still prefer to shop online, but how have retailers figured out, you know, they're not serving food and drink, so what are they doing to pump up this in-store experience and get people back out of their house?
Yeah, great question. And there really are some interesting things going on. You know, in Sherway Mall, for example, in the Toronto area, Canada Goose has a store called the Canada Goose Journey Store.
Oh, I've seen it.
And have you been there? Yeah, it's fantastic, right? So it's really almost like a theatrical, immersive physical experience is the best way I can put it. You go in, there's a 360-degree theatrical experience, so you experience sort of the heritage and the history of Canada Goose, and then they've created this cold room with snow and ice where you can actually put on Canada Goose garments and go in and test those garments in those conditions. Skechers has recently just opened a new concept store in the Toronto area as well. Skechers, the shoe brand, where they're going to be featuring pickleball courts, basketball courts. So this sort of transition between the old retail stores that we used to know where we would just go and simply buy something to this new place where we can go in and actually have fun and experience the product in its natural setting is what we're now seeing more and more of.
I find that pivot fascinating, that they figured out what's missing in the online experience is the experience and trying to make that the thing. So a 2022 report saw this shift in consumer behavior. There's more interest, as we were just saying, in experiences than in the products themselves. So is that part of social media? Like, why have customers' priorities changed?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. You know, when you think about it, we are on average these days spending anywhere from, 4 to 8 hours a day connected to devices, looking at screens. And so it's really become increasingly important that consumers are saying, look, I need to disconnect. And this is particularly true among young consumers. You would sort of think that this would sort of tip towards older consumers. But in fact, it's Gen Z that is saying, hey, I really need physical social contact. And so we're seeing young people really going back to retail, but not going back to retail for their grandmother's retail experience. It's really for these new kinds of blends of entertainment and social experiences.
You'll know her from Ginny and Georgia, Slumberland, and Utopia Falls. And now Humberly González is suiting up for an adventure that is truly out of this world.
Humberly is one of the stars of Star Trek Section 31, and we sat down to talk starships, secret missions, and what it's like joining such an iconic universe.
For those who are not familiar, what is Section 31 in the Star Trek universe?
I will put it like this. We are kind of like the CIA. We keep the harmony in space by kind of taking the trash out. And you may call us villains, but we're also kind of heroes.
I like that. I like it. Listen, were you a fan of Star Trek before this project, or did you have to do some research to get into it?
I have to say, I'm a newbie Trekkie.
Okay.
Newbie for sure. I had to do a lot of research, and especially with Mel, she's a Deltan.
Yeah.
I know she appeared initially in like the 1960s original motion picture, and Persis, who was Miss India, played her.
Oh, wow.
And she actually shaved her head for the role. So for me, it was like, I will take on the baton, yes, queen. So it's incredible to be a part of this legacy, and I'm learning a lot about this universe. Yeah.
Listen, you said you were Latina and you're born in Venezuela, so how does that work into the characters and the role that you play, in Mel specifically?
It does play into it. I will say that she is infused with all of me. And I love that, you know, the team and Craig Sweeney, who created the story, he really allowed me the freedom to bring the Latino-ness into Mel. So when you watch the movie, and I guess, you know, you did, it's an honor to bring my culture into such a big franchise, because you don't often see that. And when I started out in my career, I wasn't sure what kind of roles I would play. So it really is an honor, and it's a testament to the multiculturalism of Canada, to what people are actually demanding and is available. And now you get this incredible character in a sci-fi world that I had never really seen. So,
and think of how many other young women are going to see this role and feel like they see themselves there. Listen, I can't let you go without asking about your dog, Oreo, who's all over your Instagram. He is, how old is Oreo?
He will be 15 this year.
What?
And I swear to God, he is like, he knows sets better than most humans. He knows about cut and action. He's been inside of the set, but he's a trailer dog. He comes to every set with me. I just spent like 5 months in North Carolina filming, and he was there with me. So he truly is my emotional support dog, my bestie. And, you know, he watched me get ready this morning. He's like, am I not coming with you? I'm like, sorry, bud, not to this one.
2025 is shaping up to be a very busy year for Tom Green. The comedian has not one, not two, but 3 projects coming to a screen near you this month. He's also had a major life shakeup, trading in LA life in the States for farm life in Canada. Tom Green is joining us in studio along with Charlie.
Yes.
Good to have you both.
Yes, great to be here. Yeah,
it's really great to meet you. Tell me a little bit about Charlie.
Charlie is my amazing dog, Charlie, and she's a rescue. She's came from the Bahamas, and I got her when I was in California, and then we moved back to Canada, and she loves it here.
I'm going to ask you about that in a moment, but a lot of viewers obviously remember you from the Tom Green show back in the day. I certainly do. You were doing things in comedy that had never been done before. You really were, and you had a lot of antics at the time. Is that a nice way to say that?
Sure, yeah. Antics is a nice way to say it.
Yeah, so there's this documentary coming out that's taking viewers back into that time. What was it like for you to remember that time?
It was actually a little bit weird, to be honest with you, because I've kept all the raw footage of the shows over the years and had a storage space that I've kept literally thousands of videotapes. And to go back through your life, really, the last 30 years, I guess, looking at a lot of the wild and crazy stunts and things that we did back in the day, but also just finding things that were more personal and was kind of I'd say strange, actually, but it was cool. I directed the movie, so I had to go through the whole story and put it all together. But it's a hilarious documentary for sure.
I bet. Well, I remember that one prank that you did on your parents with the car, and then putting that like X-rated image, and then their reaction to that. When you think back about things like that, are you like, I can't believe I got away with stuff like this?
Yeah, you know, it was like you mentioned. It was before TikTok and YouTube and all this out in the street sort of crazy guerrilla pranks that you see on the internet every day. So you know, people didn't even really understand what they were looking at. Like they didn't believe that it was my real parents. They were wondering if they were actors. They sort of were kind of thrown by it all. But yeah, when I painted the car, we painted their house and did these pranks, that ended up kind of sort of catching MTV's attention and ended up sort of launching my whole comedy career, really. It was pretty cool, yeah.
Well, speaking of cool, it was cool to see you walk in to this room in particular, and you're like, I remember this place.
Yeah, before all of that, I was in a rap group in Canada called Organized Rhyme. I was a rapper, and we used to perform here on Electric Circus in this room, and that was wild. And there's some clips of that in the documentary too. So
very cool.
In the documentary, we are in this room back in 1992.
1992.
Yeah.
Which doesn't feel like that long ago, but then when you do the math, it's apparently a long time ago.
Yeah, it is.
I'm told. Over the pandemic, you moved, I mentioned off the top, you moved from LA, so like bustling city.
Yeah.
You moved to rural Ontario.
Yeah.
To a farm, 100 acres.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that move.
It's been an amazing thing. You know, I lived in Los Angeles about 20 years, but during the pandemic, I've been touring, doing stand-up the last 20 years, and my tour got canceled, and I was thinking, well, maybe it's time to go home, time to come home to Canada.
And it was the right time.
So so I've got this really awesome farm that I found.
Can I ask you about Miss Fanny?
Fanny is a mule, my mule.
Yes, your mule.
And she's amazing, and I'm learning about all of this. There's Fanny there.
Wait, so did you have much mule knowledge?
I had zero mule knowledge, but now I'm pretty comfortable riding Fanny every day. She's the one in the background, and then that's Kia in the front that I'm with who's the donkey, and she's an amazing mule. Mules are extremely smart. They're people say they're stubborn, but they're actually really, really smart, and they kind of figure things out. Like she figured out that I don't know what I'm doing.
She's on to you.
Yeah. So when in the initial 6 months of me trying to ride her, she would sort of not turn left. So we were just going to have to go.
Some people don't turn left in general.
Yeah, exactly. So like now she turns left, and we ride around in the woods and stuff, and it's really kind of a beautiful thing.
Tom,
actually.
what a
really
different life than like cut to you 10, 15 years ago, right?
I love it, and you can be anywhere now, and with the internet and with the way media's changed, you don't have to be in Los Angeles or in a big city. You can live out in the country, and I make my show and the new show Tom Green Country on Prime Video.
I was going to ask you about that. So that is the third part of this series of projects that you've been working on.
Yeah.
Your parents are involved in this? Yeah,
they are, absolutely. Yeah, my parents who were sort of involuntarily on the old show or actually showed up and are part of the show.
That's
and
so nice.
Yeah, these are some clips, I guess, from my Instagram page and stuff. Yeah, it's great to be home. That's a big part of the reason why I came back to Canada too, is I just wanted to be, the main reason really was to be home and with family and stuff. It's been a long time being away. We'd always get together over the years, but it's nice to be living just down the road from them. And but yeah, they're hilarious on the show. I don't want to give up too much of of the surprises of the show, but they kind of get me back a little bit in the series. Yeah.
That's what you call long game.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. For more great conversations, download or hit subscribe to CTV Your Morning, the podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
And don't forget, watch us live weekday mornings on CTV, CTV News Channel, or on your CTV News app. Start your morning with us.